It is the All-Star break, and a happy All-Star break to you and yours here on Believe in White Sox. I am Greg Moraz, your host. Thank you so much for joining us here on either a Tuesday afternoon or a Wednesday morning or wherever you may be listening, whenever you may be listening to this podcast or watching on my YouTube channel. So thank you so much for joining me here today. I was planning to do something for Monday, but I was not feeling great over the weekend. Had some allergy issues that cropped up. I was having trouble staying uncongested, or rather staying without a runny nose. Really TMI if you're talking about my allergic reactions. But basically what happens is that when the temperature increases too much here in San Francisco, I get snivelly, if that's the right word, sniffly, whatever you want to call it. And I was just not feeling at my best. So decided, with this being the All-Star break and the White Sox being the first team in the history of Major League Baseball to reach 70 losses at the All-Star break, granted more than half the season, but still at the All-Star break with 70 losses, I figured there really wasn't much worth talking about if I wasn't feeling up to snuff. Thursday, we're going to do a series preview for the Royals briefly and recap the entire draft. But I want to talk about the White Sox first 10 picks, but in particular, the 5th overall pick. If you go back last Monday and listen to my draft preview show, I gave you the names of 3 guys that I wanted. I wanted J.J. Weatherholt from West Virginia, I wanted Travis Bazzana from Oregon State, and I wanted Jack Caglianone from Florida. I knew one of those 3 was going to be available at number 5. It turns out both of those guys were available at number 5, or 2 of those 3 guys, as Travis Bazzana went number 1 overall. Caglianone and Weatherholt were still both available with the 5th overall pick. And the White Sox went with neither of them. In a need for a position player, when you could have had a franchise middle infielder in Weatherholt, or you could have had your Andrew Vaughn replacement or a DH to go alongside in Jack Caglianone, you decided to go with another left-handed arm in Hagen Smith out of Arkansas. Now, I like Hagen Smith the pitcher, but Hagen Smith the pitcher fits the mold of a Carlos Rodon or a Garrett Crochet, meaning the White Sox have a type. They like big, hard-throwing lefties that play in either the SEC or the ACC. You could also comp him to Chris Sale. You might also be able to comp him to Noah Schultz, but Schultz, a little bit of a skinnier guy. Hagen Smith was the SEC Pitcher of the Year this year, and he was phenomenal. If you look at his numbers, he was 9-2 with a 2.04 ERA. In 84 innings, he struck out 161 guys. That's 17.3 strikeouts per 9 innings. That is an insane number. And his slot value ends up being at about $7.7 million. So I guess the White Sox were probably thinking, is this a guy that we see in the big leagues sooner than later? And is this somebody that we don't have to take as much time teaching how to develop? Now, Hagen Smith, if you look at his numbers from freshman year to junior year, he got better every year. He didn't pitch as many innings as a sophomore as he did as a freshman, but his ERA got better. It went from 4.66 as a freshman to 3.64 as a sophomore to 2.04 as a junior. His strikeouts per 9 innings rate went up every year, 10.5 to 13.7 to 17.3. And his total strikeouts went up 90 to 109 to 161. His walks went down 46 to 42 to 34. So he had 46 walks in 77 innings as a freshman, 34 walks in 84 innings as a junior. So all of the numbers suggest that he's improving. And the SEC Pitcher of the Year, that's a moniker that I think goes a long way, especially with the strength of the SEC as a baseball conference, given that the reigning national champion Tennessee Volunteers are an SEC school. There's the old adage, I think, when you talk about drafting. What is the position of need and who's the best player available? A lot of mock drafts had J.J. Weatherholt going number 1 overall. And that the draft got shook up a little bit, I think, when Cincinnati elected to pass on Charlie Condon. So I think that shook up a lot of what some of the teams were planning to do, what the A's were planning to do, and what the Rockies were planning to do. But with Weatherholt and Caglianone available, I don't know why you don't get the best bat. That's puzzling to me. Because the way that the White Sox organization is currently constructed, and the way that I see how college pitchers can get developed, I think it's a lot easier to develop a college pitcher into a major league arm than it is to develop a college bat into an upper echelon bat. You need to have those ready-made bats, especially in the middle infield, because the White Sox, they don't have a franchise shortstop or second baseman at this point. And if you're telling me, well, just wait for Colson Montgomery, there's no guarantees based on how he's played throughout his time in the minor leagues that he's going to come to the big leagues and immediately be a stud. We're not necessarily looking at the next Tim Anderson here. So, to me, you get a guy that had the type of year that Weatherholt had as a sophomore, and granted, as a junior, he had injury problems. But still, the guy hit close to 450 as a sophomore. That has to be worth something. That has to be worth you looking at the intangibles of a guy that could play short or second base for years to come. Middle infield with a power bat is a premium draft pick. He doesn't have the type of power that Travis Bazzana has, but still pretty darn good power. And if you wanted a power bat, Caglianone is the guy that's there. So, of course, you then look at what happens in the draft, and you see the next 2 picks. Caglianone goes 6 to the Royals, and Weatherholt goes 7 to the Cardinals. So the 2 guys that I wanted the White Sox to take that were available there both went in the picks that were directly after. The Chase Burns pick at 2, I think, complicated a lot of things. And then Nick Kurtz going to Oakland at 4. Basically, that to me was surprising too, because if you're going to go with a first baseman power bat, I would have gone with Caglianone there if I'm Oakland. But maybe there was some worries about signability given what the A's organization is at this point. Now, some of the other White Sox picks, I think, are pretty evident of organizational philosophy. Their second-round pick, they go with Caleb Bonemer, a shortstop out of Okemos High School in Michigan. Again, this is what frustrates me about the White Sox. You're drafting a lottery ticket as opposed to a more sure thing. And granted, nothing in player development is ever a sure thing. It's never a sure thing. But I'd rather have the college guy that's proven he can do it at the highest level than the high school guy who may be a 4.5 tool guy or a 4 tool guy, and his 5th tool ends up being what prevents him from being a viable major league player. That to me, I think, is the biggest concern if I'm a White Sox fan. Their compensation B-round pick, Blake Larson, a pitcher from the IMG Academy. Again, a guy that I don't know a whole lot about. You also have to remember that some of these guys might not sign. Just the simple fact of it. Some of these guys might not sign. The White Sox may not give them a high enough contract, but all of the conjecture through the first 10 rounds, and as we're recording this, they're in the middle of day 3 of the draft. There are guys that will get more than enough money to stay in college, meaning that, I didn't phrase that correctly. What I mean is that there are guys that are going to sign for not much money. And those are the guys that, based on a lot of the conjecture that I saw on White Sox Twitter during the first 2 rounds of the draft, those are a lot of the guys that the White Sox took. Nick McLean, who is the younger brother of Red shortstop Matt McLean out of Arizona State, 3rd-round pick. I really like him. He's an outfielder. I think he has the potential to be a big leaguer in the next 3 to 4 years. Casey Sawkey out of Virginia with the 4th-round pick. Again, another outfielder. Your college infielder that you get is Sam Antonacci out of Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina had a very good year, so very happy to see the White Sox take a college infielder. Then Jackson Appel, catcher out of Texas A&M with a 6th-round pick. Phil Fox, a right-hander out of Pitt with the 7th-round pick. Aaron Combs, a right-handed pitcher out of Tennessee with an 8th-round pick. Jack Young, a right-handed pitcher out of Iowa with a 9th-round pick. And Cole McConnell, a left-handed hitting outfielder out of Louisiana Tech with a 10th-round pick. So, of the White Sox first 11 picks, which is your rounds 1 through 10 plus their compensation B round pick, which was Blake Larson, your college guys across the board, except for Bonemer and Larson, and you end up with 5 of your first 10 picks being pitchers. It signals to me a couple of things. It signals to me, number one, you're more comfortable developing pitchers and that you would rather trade major league assets for position player prospect talent. That's what we saw the White Sox do when they made the Adam Eaton trade to the Nationals and when they made the Chris Sale trade to the Red Sox, because you got ready-made infield prospects in Yoan Moncada. You got ready-made. Actually, the Nationals didn't send any infield guys back, at least not that I can remember. But the Jose Quintana trade, you get Eloy Jimenez as a ready-made outfield guy. So maybe that's the White Sox organizational philosophy on that. I disagree with the pick, but I still like the player. But the other thing that taking Hagen Smith, and the White Sox are an organization that's not afraid to rush these left-handed guys up to the bigs. I don't agree with that, especially in a window where the White Sox are not going to be competitive. There's no reason to start this guy's clock earlier than you need to. There are people that say he could pitch in the big leagues this year. But if that is the White Sox philosophy, that he could pitch in the big leagues this year, what it tells me, and there were rumors that came out over the weekend, what it tells me is that if you're willing to take a power left-handed arm with your first draft pick and a guy that's from an SEC school that a lot of people might think is ready to pitch in the big leagues, just like Garrett Crochet was in 2020, and just like Chris Sale was in 2010, what it tells me is that the White Sox are going to deal Garrett Crochet. And they're going to wait and deal him to the highest bidder. Because you don't take somebody like Hagen Smith and sign him to the $7.76 million slot value signing bonus and have him under team control for as long as you're going to, and not have him eventually be the ace of the rotation. It means that the White Sox are going to try and sell as high as they can on Garrett Crochet right now, while he's still under team control, while he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. I disagree with it, but maybe the White Sox are thinking, we don't want to pay him past his first contract and overpay for past performance as opposed to paying for future performance. I don't agree with the philosophy. I'm just saying that's what I think the White Sox are thinking they want to do. So if that is the case, if that is what the White Sox are going to do, then it's understandable why you would go with a power lefty arm that could be big league ready. Now we'll have to see if Hagen Smith gets the type of contract that he wants to actually sign with the White Sox. I have to imagine that if you're taking a guy with the 5th overall pick, you're not going to haggle over whatever contract he wants and allow him to go back to school. I don't think that's going to happen. At the same time, though, I think the White Sox want to get this contract done and get him in the organization before the trade deadline so that they can dangle Crochet. And Crochet was being rumored to go to the Yankees in a package that brought back one of their top outfield prospects in Spencer Jones. I saw a lot of Yankee fans on Twitter being really not too keen on Spencer Jones, not in terms of him leaving, but saying if that's all you've got to give up in terms of like a high name prospect, that's a win for New York. But I think, unfortunately, what this means is the writing is on the wall that Crochet is no longer going to be a part of the organization. But it also doesn't solve the problem of what you're going to do long term in the middle infield positions, what you're going to do long term at any of the infield positions. There's no answer. Right now, I don't see. I mean, are you going to really trust that Lenyn Sosa is going to be that guy? I don't think so. Is Colson Montgomery going to end up being what you want him to be? I hate the term that I call prospect humping. And that is fans or people that cover teams, they lock onto like one or two prospects that are strong prospects in a relatively weak farm system and say, oh, this guy's the future, this guy's the future. Like, we can't trade him. There's no way we can trade him. No, stop it. Slow your roll. You have to be recognizing that certain prospects are just that. And until you see them perform at the big league level. One of the reasons why the Padres are able to trade so many prospects for big league ready talent is because they have a deep farm system. Padre fans don't prospect hump because they know that their system is that good. Giants fans, meanwhile, they prospect hump. I had to hear about Kyle Harrison and how he was untouchable for 3 years. And Kyle Harrison is in the big leagues now with the Giants, and he's fine, but he's not a guy that was untouchable. If the Giants, the year they won 107 games, wanted to pick up somebody significant, and they got Chris Bryant, and that didn't work out. But if the Giants wanted to make a blockbuster move, and that team said Kyle Harrison's got to be a part of the package, fine. You have to trust that your organization can develop your own prospects. You know, guys are drafted for a reason. You have to trust that your organization is going to do the right thing and be able to bring the right people in. Over the weekend, the White Sox were swept by the Pittsburgh Pirates in a manner that can only be described as excruciating, losing 9-4 on Friday, 6-2 on Saturday, and 4-1 on Sunday. The White Sox enter the All-Star break with 71 losses. I believe their record, and I should have the standings up in front of me, I want to guess that it is 27-71, which is maybe one of the worst records entering the All-Star break of all time. It is the worst record, rather the most losses of any team entering the All-Star break ever. And, 27-71. The White Sox are now 32 and a half games back at the Cleveland Guardians for first place in the American League Central, and they are 27 and a half games back out of the last American League wildcard spot. White Sox are open for business. Anybody you want, anybody at all. Give me a Tommy Pham. Give me a Paul DeYoung. You know, one of the reasons why, and it's not to say that there isn't enough to talk about, but I mean, until some trades happen, there isn't a whole lot to talk about in terms of the present of this team. We can only stretch what this is so far, but we're going to have a lot of content to talk about once the White Sox end up making a deal and we see what the return is and we see where that return is going to get them a couple of years down the road. Quite frankly, if you've got major league ready hitting that, is a rookie or a first year or a second year guy, and you feel like they can be a part of the organization long term, that's a guy that I want, even if they're not necessarily a premium prospect. It's going to test the White Sox ability to develop at the major league level. To me, the White Sox have done a poor job once their guys have gotten to the big leagues at developing them at the major league level. So maybe they'll just rely on other organizations to do it for them and see where that nets them out. But again, short episode today. On Thursday, we will figure out exactly what we're going to talk about. I think we'll go through a comprehensive list of draft picks, list off some college stats of the college guys, and see what we like and don't like about certain guys, and who in the later rounds we might project to be somebody that we talk about unexpectedly a couple of years down the road. So that's it. That's all for today's edition of Believe in White Sox. Like, subscribe, tell a friend, all of the mumbo jumbo that we normally talk about when we are recording one of these bad boys. Had some good growth on Friday, our highest download numbers yet ever on Friday, so really excited about that. But again, please continue to help us grow. We need the support. Thanks again, everybody, for watching, listening, however you're consuming Believe in White Sox. We'll talk to you again either Thursday or Friday.